Welcome back. Today we're going to be working on how to build a bar chart using Plotly, again in Marimo notebooks. So I have a new Marimo notebook here inside of MoLab. We're going to rename this to working on a bar chart, just so that we can keep track of it back in our home screen with all the different notebooks we have. The first thing we're going to do before we write any code is to go to our package manager and make sure that we have the correct environment. So in a prior video, we had shown that if we wanted to export static versions of plots like SVGs, then we need to make a few changes. First, we need to have a Plotly version that's different. So let's go ahead and install that. Plotly equals 6.0.0 is what we decided would work. We hit enter and we wait for this to install. Once that's installed, we can install the next, which is Kaleido equals 0.2.1. Let that install. Once that's installed, then we're ready to go. Now, the first thing we're going to need in order to construct a bar chart is data. For me, I think we could just plot some information about the medal count coming from the Tokyo Olympics, as shown here. So you can go out and you can look up a record of the Tokyo Olympics, and we could see, let's say, what are the total medal counts for USA, China, the Republican Olympic Committee. So at the time, there was Russia, the country, was not allowed to participate, so their athletes participated under this Russian Olympic Committee. Great Britain and Japan, this covers the top 5 medal counts as shown here. And we could just enter those if we want. We could also think about bronze or silver or gold counts. It doesn't matter too much to me, but maybe we can focus on the gold counts. So there's a few different ways that we could do this if we want. We could type this information in as we have before, and maybe we'll continue to do that this time, or we could load the data into Plotly, or into Python, and use it that way directly. And I think we'll save that for a future video. So let's go ahead and just use this information here. I'm actually just gonna say copy, and we'll see how I'm gonna use that in a moment. So I will click here, tab over to have import Marimo as MO. We're going to use the same approach to making Plotly plots. So I'll say from plotly.subplots import make subplots. All right. And then I can run this and move to the next cell by holding shift and pressing enter. And what we're going to do this time, last time we started making a figure, and then we typed or entered the data directly into the figure object as we were creating it. And this time, let's go ahead and make a variable that holds this data that we're going to use later on. And so let's call this gold medal counts equals, I'm going to say paste to paste in the values that I had before. And then I'll just go ahead and delete this and say start a list. Remember, a list in Python starts with these square brackets. And then I'll add a comma at the end. You could put this all on one line, doesn't really matter. Since it pasted this line after line, and since in Python it doesn't really matter, I'll just do it this way. Probably a lot of people that do a fair amount of coding in Python are gonna find this ugly, and I'm fine with that. This is the quickest way to get this information in, and that's really all I want. All right, and then we'll have country names. All right, that's our variable name that we're going to have for the different countries that we're using. If I bring that up, I can do the same thing. I can just take the names that I'm interested in the same order that they are for this gold medal count and paste them in. If I double click to highlight USA and then enter quotation marks, it'll automatically place them on either side. So that's sort of a nice bit about this particular this particular IDE, or what's called an integrated development environment, this notebook, is that it's sort of aware that this is how you want to handle text, and that quotation marks are used to offset text with strings that we want to use. And then I'll put these all on the same line just to like illustrate a more normal practice. Okay, now I have gold medal counts and country names. We can see these appear if I go to the Explorer and then run this, and we have country names with the strings here and gold medal counts with the counts. Now we need to make a bar chart. So let's go ahead and make a new cell for this, just so that we can keep track of things separately, right? We could even give these like comments, and we could say like add data or import data, whatever you want to say. And then here we're going to create a bar chart. Something else you could do if you wanted is name the cell. And so if I click on those three dots, I have this cell name. So I could say make bar chart. So there's make bar chart. And then that can also help us out. So either one is totally fine. We start by making a figure object, and we could call it bar chart, or we could call it fig like we did before. It doesn't really matter. We're going to say make subplots. Again, we're going to call this as a function, but this function doesn't need any arguments. Just the default behavior is fine. It's going to take a figure object and assign it to this variable fig. And now we have a figure object. We can also comment this if we want, make figure object, and then we can use methods of this figure object to add things like a bar chart. So if we want to add a bar chart, then it would be fig dot add bar, and then within this function we can provide the arguments that let us build the bar out. All we need right now, we're going to modify this as we move forward, is thinking about how are we going to represent this data. And the typical way we would see a bar chart is to have vertical bars. And so the height of the bars, or the quantitative part of the bars, are going to be associated with the vertical axis, often called the y-axis. And then the country names would be spaced along the horizontal axis, which we call the x-axis typically. So the way we do this is we assign those country names to the x value, and then the y value will have the gold medal counts. And then we can say fig dot show, and again, we don't have to give it this an argument, and it will produce a bar chart for us. So this is the most basic bar chart that we can make, where we've just given it values for the x and y axes. And let's see what Plotly produces. And this is the output that we get. Now, you may find the first time that you run the import of make subplots, and the first time that you run creating a figure, that this is relatively slow after you've changed Plotly from the default, this lower version that's going to work with exporting PNGs and SVGs and things like that. That's okay. It should hopefully be much faster every time after that you run. For me, the longest it's taken has been about 30 seconds that very first time. So that's something to be aware of. Now, we have our chart. It's not quite well formed. There's a few things that we might like to do in order to help people understand what they're looking at. And one is to provide some information for the axes. So this is the first chart that we have where we have an axis that we need to worry about. We have this y-axis, and typically we might put a title there. So let's go ahead and do that. We can say fig.update y-axes, and it uses the plural version in this method to add or change information about the axis, because you could have multiple y-axes across many different plots. And this would update them all. We'll talk about how to control what we update when and where later on as we make multiple subplots. But we want to add a title, and so the keyword for that is title. Now, the title is what's going to appear here on the y-axis. And this is just a gold medal count. So gold metal count. If I run this cell, you'll see that it says gold medal count. Now, the other thing that we might want to have is an overall title. And so we know how to add that. At this point, that is part of the overall layout. So we're going to say fig dot update layout. And then again, what we want here is a title, and we can decide what the story is we want to tell. For me, looking at this, the claim I might want to make is that the USA and China dominated the gold medal count. Okay, and now if I run this, we have USA and China dominated the gold medal count. This is fine. It is a title that makes a claim, and the user can look at this and decide whether it is supported by the data. However, there's a few things I don't like. One, it doesn't really have clear alignment with anything on the page. And in particular, there's this like sort of y-axis, the left side of this shaded region of the plot. And I would expect text to be left aligned on a page, and this provides a strong vertical line for the page. So I'm going to try to get it aligned there. I'll hit comma to start something else. We said that before this was title exposition, and so let's try 0.1 and see what that looks like. It's too far. And so you can see that there's going to be like just a little bit of like guessing and trying to move this over enough that it looks aligned. You know, you can do it this way. You could, of course, also save this as an SVG file and then bring that into Boxy. So we could have fig.write image, and then we give this a name. So bar chart.svg. You could call it gold medal counts SVG, whatever you want. And of course, that will then write to the file system here, and we should have the SVG. It doesn't show up, so we'll just refresh the file system, and there it is. Okay, so that's our bar chart. We could go here, we could download it, and bring it into something to edit it. But for me, this was fast enough that I don't really care. This also seems a little far away from that box, so I'll also adjust for me the Y title while we're here. So how about 0.9? Let's see what that does. Yeah, probably could even be a little bit closer if we wanted. That looks pretty good. Now we have a properly titled y-axis, and we have a title that's aligned with this axis. There's a few other things I particularly don't like. I'm not a huge fan of these grid lines and this shaded region. I know other people are, but for me, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that right now. And we'll see how to do that, and then there'll be further parts of the course where we really discuss why we may or may not want those. There's a way to apply a whole lot of presets about how you want your plot to look, and those are called templates. So I'm just going to say template, and the one that I like is called simple white. Don't forget the underscore between simple and white. That's important. And now when I run this, you'll see that the output is very different. This may take a while as it loads in all the defaults associated with this and applies it to the figure. But there you have it. Now this looks a lot more simple to me. There's still things I don't like with regard to like the tick marks here on the x-axis, but this is something we can come back and change in a future video, and we will. But for me, this looks pretty good right now, and we'll think about how to edit it more in the future.